and the American Federation of Teachers. Between them, their membership is almost 5 million. I'm going to introduce them jointly because, even though they'll speak one at a time, because since January, as we heard earlier today, we have been working together week by week to try to help build a united labor movement in this country. A united labor movement in this country would bring us, under one House of Labor, 15 million members strong. Currently, we have NEA, proud of its independence for more than 100 years. AFT, like CWA and the AFL-CIO. And then 4 million members in Change to Win unions. Both of these leaders have incredible battles on their hands. Defending education in this country during this recession is brutal. Defending the working conditions of their millions of members, nearly impossible. But they do it and also provide leadership for all of us. Both were elected president for the first time last year, but both are long-time leaders of our movement. And both have made it a priority in their first year in office not to sit back and wait and hope, but to commit to a united labor movement at this historic time in this country. Dennis comes originally from Arizona, and Randy from New York, but they're on the same mission, as you will hear. And our Resolution 1, which we will consider after they speak, is to build and work for that united labor movement. So with that, it's my privilege to first introduce Randy Weingarten, the newly elected president of the 1.4 million member American Federation of Teachers, and then Dennis Van Roekel, president of the 3.2 million member National Education Association. My sister, Randy.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you, Dennis. So, what do you think? I had my Wheaties this morning. You know, I do sometimes feel like Larry, Dennis, and myself are in a church or a synagogue. We've been very passionate about uniting the labor movement, and we could actually talk in alternative sentences or verses, but as important as spirituality is, and as important as prayer is, and it is, we need more than prayer to bring back the muscle of the labor movement. We need unity. And Larry is one of the most ardent supporters of unity, and he knows I'm in the middle of a couple of major things. You know, New York is always so quiet. Anybody who's watched, Albany is like the pantheon of good government these days. So we're in the middle of some stuff up there in the next few days, but I was not going to miss this for the world, because ultimately I need to tell you that your leadership in the CWA, I watch them virtually every day. They are some of the most amazing people on earth, and thank you, Larry, for letting us be here to address your incredibly great delegates. Thank you. Now, that same, I know he's like so calm. Is that the same Larry you know? Collected. Look, Larry has lent the larger labor movement the same brilliance and dedication that has made him such an effective leader of the communication workers. Your Stewart's Army has become a model throughout the labor movement for how to engage local leadership and rank and file members in the important work of our union and your union. And there's a lot of people, you have been the conscience of the work towards the Employee Free Choice Act. Your union has, but the real mover and shaker has been the one and only Larry Cohn. I think single-handedly, he has made sure that no one can forget the importance of the Employee Free Choice Act. He has made it, and I said this before, I'll say it again, almost single-handedly, with that relentless focus and force. He gets it, as you do, why we need an Employee Free Choice Act, why we need to level the playing field so that once and for all, the labor movement can be back to what we always wanted it to be. In that same way, he has been one of the most ardent supporters of getting all of us together as a united labor movement. And ultimately, I think both Dennis and I are here today to speak with that one voice about how important it is to unite us. And speaking of unity, let me just talk about Dennis for a few minutes and about the National Education Association. It is no secret that the AFT and the NEA once engaged in the battles royale across this country. I would say that the Battle of the Roses were nothing compared to the battles that we engaged in. And the distraction it did, and the minimization and marginalization of teachers across the country it did, was something that we both have learned to not do in as much as we can. What do I mean by that? We now have 4 of our states united as NEA and AFT together. Why? That's 600,000 of our members who are united as AFT and NEA affiliates. The AFT has supported the opportunity of NEA locals to affiliate with the AFL-CIO in what is called Labor Solidarity Partnership Agreements, and a number of NEA locals have done so. Why do we do this? Even though we're 2 labor unions working for teachers, we do this because we understand at our gut level that labor unity is really important. We understand that what a union is and is supposed to do. We understand that a union itself is about providing representation on a job, giving workers a voice, affirming the dignity of work, enabling workers to both earn a decent living and make a valuable contribution to their workplace. But we know that if we were all islands doing just that, we would not do the greater good. Because all 3 of our unions understand that unions also work to build a certain kind of society, one that fosters social and economic justice, one that respects civil and human rights, one that promotes access to my passion, quality education, and to all of our passions, quality, affordable health care. One that creates a healthy environment, and one that values a safe and secure retirement. Now, all of us, every single day, have tried to make tremendous progress towards these goals. And many times, in many eras, we have. But these days, between the whammy of the global economy and the global recession, it always feels like we're taking 2 steps backwards for every step we take in front of us, and that is why we need a united labor movement. Every single member together to fight for the goals of basic working people, to fight for quality education, to fight for quality health care, to fight for a safe and secure retirement. We need everyone together in order to do that. And the split in the labor movement that occurred in 2005 was tragic. And a lot of it was born out of the frustration I know you feel and I know my 1.4 million members feel. Yes, we've cooperated on political campaigns since then. Yes, we work on legislative initiatives since then. Yes, we're doing quite a bit of work together in the states, but we're not together. And when we're not together, there can be different voices. They can have different agendas, and it makes the work we do much more complicated. Think about what's happening in terms of the Employee Free Choice Act. Look at it. AT&T posted a $3.1 billion profit for the first 3 months of this year. Did I get that right?
Yep.
During roughly that same period, the company reduced its workforce by 8,000 people. And I've spent a lot of time talking to Larry when he's been in his sleepless nights in this horrible, rancorous, uphill battle that you all have been having in terms of AT&T. Let's get this right. $3.1 billion. Now, remember, I'm a teacher, but not a math teacher. $3.1 billion in profits, 8,000 either layoffs or reduction in force, and asking for givebacks in a horrible, protracted labor negotiation. Hey, it's America. They have that right. But it isn't right what they're doing. And we need a united labor movement so that all of us can help the CWA every single day to stop that. We need labor law reform that gives workers voice and rights for their aspirations. We're not asking for a $1 billion golden parachute. We're asking for the right to decent health care, the right to decent retirement, the right to decent wages. That's all we're asking for. That is the dignity we need, and that's why we need a united labor movement. And that's why we need EFCA. Why the employers fight us tooth and nail. Do you think they want us to have more than 7% of the United States of America organized in the labor movement? So they will fight us tooth and nail because they know if we get the Employee Free Choice Act, they know workers in this country are mad and frustrated and they want a union and they want a collective voice. And that's why they're fighting us tooth and nail. And that's why I honor Larry and the CWA for being the conscience of this act. And that's why we will get EFCA because we are right and we are strong and we are passionate and we are motivated to get it right. I can't hear you, right? They can't hear you on the Capitol, right? See, this is what it's like to be a teacher. So look, my friends, just as public education is the great equalizer for our students, the labor movement is the great equalizer for working people. And as your convention theme suggests, the labor movement is central to rebuilding America's middle class and to providing economic mobility and security to all Americans. I look forward to the day when union density is not 10%, not 25%, not 50%. I look forward to the day when we as a labor movement are synonymous with the aspirations and the dreams and visions of the great people of the United States of America. When we can speak with one voice, when we won't have to go on strike for a decent wage, for decent health care, or decent retirement benefits. When people in their golden years won't have to go back to work at Walmart, or when people are one check away or one job away from devastation if they have cancer. I look forward to the day when our dreams and America's dreams are the same. We are part of the same cause. We are part of the same movement. We will unite our movement and bring dignity and justice for all to all Americans. God bless you and thank you.
Thanks, Randy. And now we will hear from an amazing math teacher. And Dennis does know calculus if anybody wants any help. But as Randy said, and as I said earlier, it's what we can do together. These three unions and others committed to a united labor movement. And Dennis has made it already in his first year a major commitment to help us unite the American labor movement. Dennis.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you're all sitting there wishing you could follow Randy. Now, I don't know if you know this, but we were sitting up here talking beforehand, and as usual, we think so much alike. We said, why don't we just switch speeches? So she gave mine, and I know how much you liked it. And I just hope you like hers as much. We work well together, and it makes all the challenges worthwhile. It's so much better to be together in fighting for what we all care about so deeply. I want to thank you, Larry, for the invitation and the kind introduction. I am honored to be here. It's kind of ironic for me to be with CWA in that when I became president of the Arizona Education Association, one of the first unions I went into a partnership with was CWA. We had a constitutional amendment we were trying to pass in Arizona, and AEA and CWA worked together, and we succeeded. I want to make two quick points before I talk about labor unity. Number one, I want to tell you how proud NEA is to sign on with CWA on the Speed Matters initiative. It's about time. I mean, if we want to be competitive in this ever-changing world, that we need to step up, and we need federal policy on this. Just as in the 19th century, we could build canals and roads, and in the 20th century, we did interstate highways, telephone networks, and airports. Now's the time to build an internet system that leaves no American without it. And the second thing I would like to say, I need to also say what Randy said about Larry. I know of no person in those meetings who is more passionate or committed about the power and potential for America's working families than to find a way for the labor movement to come together, solid, unified in all of that we do. And you know, unity so matters. David Stockman was a budget director for Ronald Reagan many years ago. And at the time, they were cutting budgets right and left, and most of them were social programs. And someone said to David Stockman, "Don't you feel guilty about cutting all these programs?" David Stockman looked at him and simply said, "The unorganized can't play." The unorganized can't play. Now, there are two ways that you can be unorganized. One is not to have a union representing you. And in this country, we have way too many people who are without a union to represent them. And since 1974, we've seen this rapid decline in the percentage of workers enrolled in unions. We have also seen what should come as no surprise and no accident, that the whole economic growth in this country has shifted from the working families to the other side. The Economic Policy Institute said in 1965, CEO compensation was 24 times the average worker. 24 times the average worker's salary in 1965. By 2065, it was 262 times as high as the average worker. Now, if you subtract out weekends, what that means is that a CEO makes in one day what the average American worker makes in an entire year. It didn't happen by accident. It's because there were not unions there to represent those people. We need to change that. And what we need to do is to increase the number of people in unions. And if we do that, in order to do that, we need the Employee Free Choice Act. Absolutely, without a doubt, we need that. There are too many in Congress right now who are feeling a little weak-kneed. And I can't believe how much fun it would be to join you when all of you head to Congress for a little lobby day. What a great activity. And I hope you put on pressure galore. It is time for the Employee Free Choice Act right now. Early in Obama's tenure as President of the United States, he signed 3 executive orders, all having to do with labor, and invited all the labor leaders there. So Larry and Randy and I and all these labor presidents were there. And as we were waiting for the thing to start, we were all saying, so how long has it been since you were in the White House? About 8 years. Except for John Sweeney, he had the best answer. He actually was invited there one time during the Bush administration. And someone said to him, a reporter said, how did you, as president of the AFL-CIO, get invited to a Bush White House event? And John looked at him and said, the president didn't invite me, the Pope did. I love that story. I tell it everywhere. But I said there were 2 ways to be unorganized. The second way is to belong to a union, but not use the potential that we have by being unified. Just because we have 16 million people in unions, and we ought to double or triple that over the next 10 years, it doesn't mean we're organized. We have to do that. We have to make sure that what we do makes a difference. The 2006 and 2008 election, we came a long way. The behind-the-wall gang, in finding ways to maximize the use of our dollars and influencing and electing pro-union education policymakers was critical. Working America was, wow, what a success that was in 2008. But now we must take advantage of what we started. I mean, it paid off in 2008. We got Barack Obama as president, Joe Biden as vice president. We've got a majority in the House and the Senate, and now we have to turn that and make something happen. And that is to pass the Employee Free Choice Act and to build a solid, unified labor movement. I want to give you, in terms from NEA's perspective, why this is so important. Number one, we recognize that the labor movement has been the heart and soul of advocating for public education right along with us. As you look back in the history of the United States, the ending of child labor, protection of workers, it all came from the labor movement, and we recognize that. Secondly, for those of us in the public sector, we didn't start this on our own. Almost all that we have, all that we bargained for and organized for, came from the private sector unions first. We owe you. And frankly, we can't survive without you. We need a strong labor movement in the public sector and in the private sector. And internally, Randy mentioned how much has changed just in the last 10 years, since 1998. The 4 states that are merged between NEA and AFT started with Minnesota, Montana, Florida, and New York. So between those, close to 650,000, we have 17 locals that are merged with NEA and AFT for another 50,000, and we have 18 locals who have joined the Solidarity Partnerships for another 22,000 members, and there are 6 in the queue to be approved. That comes to a total of NEA members to about 719,000 members who are part of a union that's in the AFL-CIO. So times have changed, we understand. But most of all, what we understand is the power of 16 million people. We understand what it means to politicians when all of us sit together in that room. Some of you may be in Washington for the first time, and if you have a few extra moments, if Larry lets you out just a little bit early one day, you might want to check out the FDR Memorial. It's become one of my favorite spots in Washington, D.C. First of all, it's very different from all of the other memorials. It's a real tribute to a time in our history. The first time I ever went there, there are a lot of quotes carved into the stone. And I didn't have a pencil or a paper, but I saw one that so struck me. And since I didn't have a pencil, I took a picture of it so I could have it and write it down later. But if ever there was a quote that was given in a much different time that applies to what's going on right now in America, I would put forth this one. He was talking about America. And he said, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Now, the answer to doing that is a unified labor movement. That's how we do that. There are too many working Americans who have too little health care, too little solid salaries and benefits, too little retirement security, too little of everything they ought to have and deserve. The union movement is part of that. And if you look at the last 8 years in our country's history, it was all about adding more to the abundance of those who have much. So for us, we need to move on. We need to unite, be a real voice at a table. We ought to be talking about real issues and making a difference for our members. You know, I think some days that one day I know I get to retire. I keep saying I'm closer to that than I've ever been before. Because when I started this, I had brown hair. So I envisioned myself sitting on a porch somewhere in my rocking chair, maybe a glass of bourbon. Maybe, probably, likely. But I dream of thinking back to the fall of 2008 and the years that followed. Because, see, they'll be talking about us, those of us in this room right now. People will be talking about what we chose to do with the opportunity that we had. You know, it's been a long, long time since the labor movement had this kind of potential, possibility, opportunity. It won't just happen. We can't sit back now and wait for it to happen. We have to do something. We have to make it happen. But I hope 20 years from now, when they talk about us, those of us who are active right now, I hope they never say we were timid and shy. I hope they say we had the audacity to dream big. Dream real big for America's working families. I hope they say we had the courage to act. And I hope they say we had the power to make it happen. Brothers and sisters in CWA, together we will make this happen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, before Dennis and Randy have to run, I'm going to bring the Resolutions Committee back up, and we're going to look at and consider Resolution number 1, unity of the labor movement. Just like our own unity, this won't fall from the sky, and we all need to carefully consider